What's up, Wise Steak? Welcome to another edition of the NFL DFS Wise Stream. It is the NFL Playoff Divisional Round. I am your host, Patio Joe, and I am joined here once again by my man, my fellow Guido, my fellow I-Tie, my fellow WAP, that's not wet-ass pussy, my fellow WAP Italian, Paulie D. What's going on, my man?
What's up, man? How's it going, bro?
I'm doing well. You know, we are hanging out, chilling, and our main man CK is doing the fatherly duty right now, and it's so funny hearing babies cry in the background and stuff, and I'm seeing it, and I'm just like, man, I'm here listening to it, and I'm like, that is just, I don't miss those days at all. He has no idea. But like you said, most of it right now, when the baby's first born, all they do is sleep for like the first 6 months. Once they become mobile, and that's when you really got to worry about it. But anyways, congrats to CK and his wife on their firstborn that was born. I believe it was on Tuesday, right? Tuesday, yeah.
Oh, no, Wednesday.
Wednesday. All right, yeah. So Wednesday. That's right. We were gonna have a show on. That's why we didn't have the show on Tuesday,
right?
Because she was in labor. We didn't have the first look. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So, Paulie D, it is the best. They say it's the best weekend of football. We have the top 8 teams in football. I think that if they keep it to the 7 playoff teams per slate, I think maybe the wild card round with the 3 games each day might get a little bit more steam.
But there's no way they're ever gonna go away from it. Like an extra week of revenue, just everything. Like they're not gonna go away from it. I guarantee.
Especially next year, there's going to be an extra week too. So that's going to change the fantasy landscape a little bit, especially in seasonal and more DFS options. So anyways, though, we got some games, guys. We're going to go position by position, going through all 4 games. We're not going to break it down into slates. And then what me and Paulie will do is at the end there, we'll just go game by game, kind of how we think the game's going to go and such. And then by then, maybe just leave up some questions and stuff. It's not going to be a long process, guys. There's not much more to say. There's, you basically got to play some of the chalk. And then when you get to the value plays, that's where you kind of make your pivot. You kind of make it, if there's the chalk pivot down below is a value play, I don't know, John Brown or something. You make the pivot to somebody else, that's where you get your kind of your value. So anyways, Paulie D, let's start off with the quarterback position. All 4 slate. Is it just Mahomes? Just pay up for Mahomes this week? What are you doing?
There's a couple options. You know what I mean? Like, I like Mahomes a lot, but I do think Lamar Jackson is equally has as high a ceiling, slightly cheaper on DraftKings. But those 2, I'll have the most of. Like, say I have 100 teams, I would say Mahomes and Lamar would take up pretty close to like 75%, maybe 70% of the ownership, right? Then like Josh Allen, Tom Brady, Baker Mayfield, I think are in play. I can see myself getting like 5 to 10% of those guys. Like, it's unlikely, but they're going to be solo owned. It's like worth getting few shares if you build a lot of teams. And then I think like Aaron Rodgers and Jared Goff are like, really like low owned, high like risk, but both of them like are worth it too. Like, Aaron Rodgers has thrown 5 touchdown games. Like, no one would be shocked if at the end of the weekend he did well. At this point, I don't have much interest in Drew Brees. But if like Taysom Hill gets ruled out, as well as what's his name, Latavius, like maybe I could get a little interested. But for the most part, Mahomes and Jackson, for me, regardless of site, slate, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, looking at specifically, I wrote in my article that on FanDuel, I think you get a little bit of a discount on Lamar at $8K. So he makes it a little bit more affordable to kind of fit guys in. But I still think, though, that there's value enough to where if you want to go up to Mahomes, it's very easy to go up to Mahomes this week. He's in a great spot playing, like, of all the defenses in the playoffs, the Browns are the worst defense. So he will be able to pick them apart. We saw what Big Ben did against them, and that was when that was total garbage time and everything. But obviously Mahomes, if they get up big, it's because of what he did. He's usually involved in almost every touchdown. They don't run much and such. There's question marks on the running back, so it's Mahomes. Obviously, I feel like go contrarian with Josh Allen. He's at home. And what we talked about, I think Baker Mayfield makes for a great, like, if you want to pay up for like Kelsey and Hill and doing the stack, playing with Baker, because he's going to be playing from behind. The Browns have got some good matchups that they're going to be able to take advantage of, even if they get behind. And if they get up, I think that there's also some players that you can play if they get up. So I like Baker Mayfield too.
Could be this week's Pittsburgh, right? Like, Chiefs just kind of get ahead and play from ahead the whole way, but their defense just really doesn't have a good game, and the Browns just throw it a million times trying to come from behind. They just can't stop the Chiefs, but we see like a super high scoring game, and like, then all these Browns are like, could be awesome plays because of how cheap they are and how low owned they're going to be,
Yeah, and if people don't forget, but back in college, these two had a classic matchup to where Mahomes threw for over 700 yards in one game against Oklahoma, and Baker threw for over 500 against Texas Tech. It was a classic. I think Oklahoma came back and won it, but this is when they were both in college. So I don't know if they're going to have that much fireworks, but I definitely love this game as a game stack and stuff like that. We'll get to it when we get the games, but the quarterbacks are great. Now, into Rodgers, like you said, like we talked pre-show, I just feel like you're going to get the MVP at the lowest ownership you'll ever get him on a 4-game slate. I mean, he's playing the one team that you're like, if there's a team that could screw them up or could just totally take over defensively, it's the Rams. So where you were kind of like, okay, they're going to be playing Seattle, or they would have played they would have played Tampa this week.
Yeah.
If Seattle would have won,
I mean, that's
totally different.
Rams did last week to Seattle. Like the defense took over that game. They controlled the shit out of the clock and ran all over them. And like, we're gonna have bad weather in Green Bay with wind, and that's kind of Green Bay's weakness is they've been run on this year. It's it's possible for sure.
Mm-hmm. So in the quarter, Brady, I think I like Brady as a like a low owned contrarian play. He had 2 bad matchups against them. It's hard to beat a team. It's hard to beat a team 3 times, but if the Bucks get up, it's probably because they're throwing, or if they get down by a lot, they'll have to come back. So Brady is like right there. I guess Breeze is like the only quarterback that, like, unless Taysom Hill comes out or whatever, I'm not going to really be into in Goff, because he could get pulled because of the weather and just be totally ineffective because of his thumb. So
who's the back?
It's Bortles.
Blake Bortles, holy shit, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, it's Bortles. So let's move on to running backs. Paulie, this week we have one of the main guys. We have Alvin Kamara at 9K on FanDuel. I think that I'm not going to really have much of him unless, once again, we get Latavius Murray and Taysom Hill out. Because, like, Sean Payton just loves to get cute in the playoffs.
He does.
Instead of just run it up somebody's throat and just beat a team. Yeah. They're going to give Deontay Harris 10 targets. They'll give Marquez Callaway 10 targets. Instead of just throwing it to Kamara out of the backfield, which is great. I like Kamara more on DK because the Bucks have given up the most receptions out of the backfield, so that's more than Kamara on DK. I think on FanDuel he has to score to make his value, which I'm not sure he's going to do. But if those players are out, I'm good. Nick Chubb at 8,200. Obviously they're going to have to run the ball to stay in the game. What I like about Chubb is if you look at the last few games, he's been getting 4 targets, 5 targets. getting targets there. So I think they're realizing that if teams got to worry about him catching a ball out of the backfield, not just running the ball, that makes that offense even better. I like that. Aaron Jones is a contrarian play to me. I think the chalk plays this week are going to be Cam Akers and J.K. Dobbins, along with Kareem Hunt and Devin Singletary. Singletary, just because there's no Moss there, he should get 18 to 20 touches. I think if Clyde Edwards-Helaire is ruled out, then it's either pick your poison with Le'Veon Bell or Darrell Williams. I think if you're doing a lot of lineups, you could do either one of those. Or also Darrell Thompson too. I don't really want anything of the Tampa running back situation. And then Dobbins, Dobbins is Buffalo can't really stop the run. Baltimore to be able to run the ball. I like Dobbins. He scored in like 4 or 5 straight. And then Akers just being the only way the Rams are going to be able to move the ball. That that you can run the ball on the Packers. However, the Packers have been better as of late against the run. So if you wanted to fade Akers, I wouldn't necessarily talk you out of it just because, you could pivot to, Aaron Jones, which is just a little bit more, or down to, like Kareem Hunt, which I really like Kareem Hunt this week. I like him more than Chubb, and that says a lot because I'm a Nick Chubb guy. I just feel like the game script and the revenge factor and such they're going to give him goal line carries and such, which it's very frustrating why they don't give Chubb goal line carries. But Hunt's been getting the goal line carries lately, so if they get down there, he's going to get the opportunities. He's a great price on both sides. That's pretty much what I have for running back. Akers I feel like is the chalk, but if he busted, it would not shock me at all. But the Rams have run the ball the most out of any team in the NFL like the last 5 weeks. So take that for what he will. Paulie, what do you got on running backs?
I've got a question for you in a comment. First, on DraftKings, Dobbins is not projecting to be popular at all. Me, but and then question is, how do you think the running back touches are divvied out for Tampa Bay this week?
Well, they said that Fournette is going to start, so that would mean that Ronald Jones will probably get most of the work. You just don't know. The one person I think I know is not going to play is Keyshawn Vaughn because he fumbled last week. So I feel like it's going to be Fournette and Jones. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball much at all. So it's very contrarian to me. He played either of those guys.
Okay. So, like Cam Akers, he's nicely priced. He did have the good game last week. The Rams certainly are going to want to run the ball, but last week it worked out because they were ahead and in this grinded out kind of game, right? But if Aaron Rodgers does his thing and jumps out to a lead like they should, that whole thing could change for Cam Akers. And yes, the Packers did improve against the run as the season progressed. So I agree. He's the one that makes sense to kind of get underweight on. Alvin Kamara, I think, has the highest ceiling of all these guys. We just saw him have a 6-touchdown game not too long ago. I don't think they love the pass game right now. He's just very likely to do some scoring. And with New Orleans, what are they projected to score point-wise? 27. Where are those coming? You know what I mean? And there's a chance that they are playing from behind. But I agree. It's DraftKings more so than FanDuel. Aaron Jones, I think, is contrarian, but worth some exposure because if Green Bay plays from ahead, he's going to be so low owned and, just could get there. And if he ends up as the top 3 or 4 highest scoring running backs, that could win a slate for you. I'm into Chubb and Hunt. I think you could play them both in a lineup, how cheap they are on DraftKings. If Clyde Edwards-Helaire is active and healthy, I think he's interesting. He's really cheap, and I could see, I think you can run on Cleveland. What's his name on Pittsburgh last week? Like, was getting everything he wanted, albeit they were in like a prevent D kind of style. I like J.K. Dobbins a lot. Like, I think Baltimore is just going to run the ball a ton. Whether it's Lamar, Dobbins, Gus Edwards, and I do think Buffalo's weak against the run, and I think he's going to be low owned. I do think Fournette's worth like some exposure, although I don't think he has much success running. At his price, he doesn't need to. He could have like a 1-yard touchdown run and a couple catches and be worth it. I don't like the running back position. I don't plan to use 3 at all. Like, all my flexes are going to be tight ends and receivers. And, if J.K. Dobbins gets ruled out, I will get a bunch of Le'Veon Bell just because I could see that working out well, seeing the Chiefs play from the head, giving him a bunch of touches. So as it stands now, I like both the Browns guys a lot. I do, I'm cool with Devin Singletary just because he's really cheap. But it'd be the 2 Browns, J.K. Dobbins, and Alvin Kamara would be like my favorites right now. And the Chiefs running back, whoever that ends up being, would be like the next guy for me.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Darrell Williams. That's who I would pick. He has the playoff experience with Reed a couple years ago. He was there, and he sat week 17 against the Chargers, and they played Bell. They played the other guys. So they played Darwin Thompson. So I think that might be, if you pick that right, with that value, being able to put in other players might be what gets you in the money. Okay, so
how likely is Edwards-Helaire to playing, you think?
I think he's on the wrong side of questionable. He didn't practice the last 2 days, so but I think that they can win this game without him too.
I agree.
So why really plan? Plus, remember earlier in the year, he was like active for a game, but he was questionable and he just sat on the bench the entire game?
Yep.
It was a Sunday night game, I think it was, or something, if I remember correctly. But he just sat on the bench.
Yep.
All right, so let's move on to the wide receiver spot. Obviously, up top, we got Devontae Adams. I think he's completely contrarian. He's going against Jalen Ramsey. I think that he could score. He's going to get his, but Jalen Ramsey is going to slow you down. How are you treating Adams, and then take on with wide receiver?
It's hard to spend up for Adams, but I plan to be over the, at least around the field because he's matchup proof. Like, yes, Jalen Ramsey's there, but I don't think it matters. I think he's going to get the volume, and he's just done it all season long. And I think he's got to be one of the most probable to score a passing touchdown on the slate. I'll have some, but it's a tough matchup. I think it's a lower scoring game. I'm just more interested in the receivers and the other games that I like. I think Mike Thomas is all right. I think he's going to be a little too popular, and I get it. Like, he should get volume, but I think the Chiefs are going to run the ball a lot. I mean, the Saints are going to run the ball a lot and do a lot of like dump downs. I don't know. He's all right, but not that interested. Stephon Diggs, I think, is in a tough matchup. I feel kind of the same about Diggs as I do Adams. Like, I think they're like in difficult situations to ceiling, but I think their floors are solid enough that, they might be worth it. Tyreek Hill, I think, has a ton of upside. I like him the most of the expensive receivers. What's his name got ruled out today? Sammy Watkins, that just like is a boost for him. I like all the Tampa Bay receivers: Evans, Godwin, Antonio Brown, with Godwin probably being my favorite. I like Jarvis Landry. I like Robert Woods. I like Cole Beasley. And then, like, as you mentioned pre-show, like some of the contrarian cheap receivers, are just interesting. Like John Brown, Emmanuel Sanders, one of the cheap Chiefs, whether it's Hardman or Demarcus Robinson, or Rashard Higgins, Marquez Valdes-Scantling. And I think Deontay Harris is really worth playing. He's in the same exact situation as last week. And, all of a sudden he, popped off with targets. So I've got interest there. You know what I mean? Like, I think he is the best punt returner in the game right now. Really elusive, and I could see him, taking a screen and going to the house. I think Tampa Bay is pretty poor at tackling in the open field. So at 3.5, that makes sense to me. It just opens up a lot. It can help get you Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and things like that. So I like him a lot as like a really contrarian cheap option.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What about the other receivers down like in the mid tier or something? Anybody of those guys?
So like I mentioned, I like the two Chiefs guys like Hardman and Marcus Robinson. I think Rashard Higgins is in play. I like Marquez Valdes-Scantling. I think John Brown is a nice contrarian play. Emmanuel Sanders. Cole Beasley's probably my favorite cheap guy, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my number one receiver this week, believe it or not, is Antonio Brown. I think he's going to blow up. I think he's got a great price. I think that he has on both sides. He's 6,400 on FanDuel, 5,400 on DK. He's faced both Lattimore and Janoris Jenkins in the past with the Steelers, and he smoked them in both things. But we've been texting Paulie that Antonio Brown looks like the old Antonio Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Every week, he feels like he's looking like the player of old.
Yep.
So at his price and such, get you a piece of that offense. I prefer, if I was doing a cash game setting, I think Godwin has a better, is going to be more targeted and a better matchup, but Brown has got the higher ceiling. That's my number one guy. Obviously, I agree with you what you said about, Tyreek Hill and Diggs. I still like them. They're still going to blow up. Obviously, if you're playing the 2-game slates, you have to play them and such. On the 4-game slate, you might have to pick one of them, but I think you could fade them and get a piece of, if you're playing Mahomes, you get a piece of Hill or Kelce. You get a piece of that. So I also like you said, Mecole Hardman. If it looks like what's his name, Sammy Watkins is out, he was like third in targets the last 4 weeks. And he only played like 40% of the snaps. So he'll probably play about 50% of the snaps this week. And his price, blowing up, maybe even garbage time, stuff like that. MVS is the other guy I like out of all those Packers receivers, but Lazard is fine too. You got to think, they're going to go somewhere else besides Adams at some point. I think that Marquise Brown is in a tough matchup, so if you're only doing a lot of lineups, I'm not going to go there. Michael Thomas last year against the same Bucs defense. Last year, the same Bucs defense, he was, he basically had about, 300 yards against them in 2 matchups, so I feel like you're going to get Michael Thomas at the lowest. You're going to get him at the price-wise, at least in the rest of this playoffs. So, obviously, there's dart throws that you can have and everything, but I feel like that, don't get too cute with some of these receivers. The Rams receivers, I would have liked Kupp, but I think he's on the wrong side of questionable. And I like Woods, but he's going to be centered by Jerry Alexander. Jarvis Landry, I feel, is another, if you're doing a chief stack, you got to run it back with Jarvis Landry. You can get them in the slot. Plus, you're going to have garbage time, a lot with the Browns this weekend. So I think that's it for receiver. Let's move on to tight end. It's Travis Kelce week, it's Mark Andrews week, and it's Austin Hooper week. I think those are the 3 Main tight ends, it's the only ones I'm really going to have. I could see maybe playing a Jared Cook because you're doing a Saint stack. Gronk was a total bust, and I wouldn't play him this week anyways because they kept him in because they need to protect. They need him to block, and so that's why they were throwing to Brate more. So I wouldn't go to Gronk. To me, it's Kelsey, Andrews, or Hooper. Maybe Tanyan. Dawson Knox is a dart throw because he'll score touchdowns, and that's about it. So, but it's basically just the top three, like I said: Kelsey, Andrews, and Hooper. Andrews is in a great spot. I think Andrews has a chance to match Kelsey if that game were to shoot out. What do you say? What's it?
Wouldn't say a single word differently.
Mm-hmm.
I'm only playing Kelsey, Andrews, and Hooper, and I'm gonna have a lot of teams with both Kelsey and Andrews. I think they're just both in just phenomenal spots, and like if Baltimore, scores 30 points, like I think they do, I think Andrews, has a chance to have 2 or maybe even 3 of those touchdowns. The Bills are bad against the tight end, and like 7 to 10 catches, yards, everything. And I mean, Kelsey's just in an absolute smash spot. Losing Watkins, potentially CEH being out. Like, it's going to be Mahomes to Kelsey and Hill all fucking day. Like, you played Kelsey all season and it hasn't hurt. Like, why would you stop?
I agree. Yeah, and Hooper, he's been getting like 10 targets a game the last 3 weeks. Negative game script. In my one game stack, I got Kelsey and Hooper in the same team because his price is that low. There's not a better value down in that area. Moving on to defense, Paulie D, it's Green Bay, I think, up top. And then you could make a case for any other one. I don't think that there's anyone that, besides maybe the Browns, I wouldn't play. I even think you could get the Rams if you feel like they're going to get a couple sacks. They're cheap.
Yeah, they probably will. I like the Saints probably second most, and it's tied to Deontay Harris, who I like. I think if you play Deontay, there's value to just adding the Saints because he could take a punt to the house. The Saints have one of the best defenses. Tom Brady's not as good as he used to be. He could certainly fall apart in a playoff game like the Saints have done to him this year. They're going to get sacks. They could get picks. Tom Brady's thrown pick sixes this year. Like, I think the Saints are one of my favorites. Like, I think the Ravens are very interesting, although I do think the Bills put up points and score, but Josh Allen could fall apart too. He's been known to be very turnover prone, take risks, especially when trailing. And then the Chiefs and the Packers. Like, I could just see those two teams dominating the most. So those 4 are the ones I'll have for like almost like 25% apiece. Ravens, Bucks, Saints. Ravens, Saints, Chiefs, Packers.
At this point, you almost have to expect that most of these teams are going to score. You're just hoping for some sacks. You're hoping for not a 0. That's what I hope for. Just don't give me a 0. Give me something, and I'm good with. All right. Basically my core this week would probably be if I was doing like a small entry tournament, guys, single entries. Patrick Mahomes. I like J.K. Dobbins. Then at wide receiver, I like Antonio Brown. And at tight end, Travis Kelce. That will allow you to pay up for, Kamara, one of the receivers, Chris Godwin, something like that. But that's my core that I'm going to be going with on this weekend in the 4-game slate. Paulie, let's move on to the game-by-game, real quick analysis, and then we'll get on out of here. Rams, Green Bay, how's it going to go? A point spread is, I think it's -6.5 for the Packers. What do you think?
46 total. It's tough. Like, I was really impressed with what the Rams did, although, truth be told, we're probably a little blinded to the Seahawks because we like DK and Russ so much, but they really were not the same team at the end of the year as they were at the beginning. And, I don't know how impressive what the Rams actually did last week was. Um, I think the Packers win at home. Aaron Rodgers, the MVP, the Rams dealing with injury. I just don't think that defense is going to carry them one more week, and I really can't see Goff, beating the Packers on the road in cold weather. Like, it's the Packers for me in like a lower scoring, commanding win, like 23-3, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm kind of with that too. I think that it's the Packers covering, but it's not. They don't live up to, I guess, expectations. I guess, or that offense. I think I give Rams the credit. I give them everything, but I just don't think that it's going to pan out. But I got the Packers winning. Let's move on to Baltimore at Buffalo. Right now, we see it's sitting at Buffalo's 2.5-point favorites. It's some places you can get it 3, but it looks like it's 2.5 most places. 49.5 over under.
Yeah, so I hate being on like the public favored underdogs, which the Ravens certainly are. Everyone I hear likes the Ravens. But, I think it's just like it's that obvious that this is a tough matchup for the Bills. And, like, I don't see the Ravens losing by any more than 2, and I find it hard to really envision them losing. I think they get out in front, make less mistakes, control the ball on the ground in cold weather. They've got good matchups where the Bills are strong and the Bills are weak where the Ravens are strong. Like the Ravens should be able to control the clock, the ball, and just do what they want on the ground. But I do think the Bills like show up and continue to score, and I think this game is the highest scoring game on the weekend and very close to the end. But I do think Baltimore wins like 38-31, 38-34, very high scoring. I want a ton of Ravens. And then I like the contrarian Bills. You know what I mean? Just like the other receivers other than
Diggs.
yeah, and I think Josh Allen is worth because I don't see if the Bills score a lot of points, I think Josh Allen runs in at least 2, and has a big day on the ground. I don't see them having success running conventionally. I don't see them having a ton of success throwing the ball. It's like I think the only way the Bills really hang is if Josh Allen just has one of the best games we've seen.
Yeah. It was tough for me this week. Like, I've been on the Ravens for the last 5 or 6 weeks, so I'm not getting off of them now. I think they're going to win this game. I think it's going to be tough, but I just think Lamar is going to take over. They're going to run the ball, and they're just more the Ravens are just more playoff seasoned than the Bills, and they're more playoff hardened. And I just think that in a back and forth type of game, that last week the Colts almost got these guys. So the Ravens are playing better than the Colts. The Colts last week, Jack Doyle tore them up. We were talking about tight ends. They had 14 catches to the tight end last week. So they're just going to work that, force, they're not going to try and force Lamar to throw it outside in the bad weather. That's why I don't really like Hollywood this week, so it's going to be all inside where you can take advantage of them. So Ravens win a close game. Let's move on to the next game. We have the Cleveland Browns taking on Kansas City. It's a 56, 57 over under. We're ready to see it. -10. We were talking about it earlier pre-show. We both think to take Cleveland on the points, but we think Kansas City is going to win. Do we think it hits the 57?
I don't. I think it'll be high scoring, but the only way I think it gets over 57 is it being very close the whole way or Cleveland leading, but I think Cleveland shows up but I think they run out of steam, and like I see the Chiefs winning like 28-17, maybe 28-21. Like I'm 50-50 on like betting on the Browns because the Browns are getting like 80% of the public vote, which shocked me. And like at the end of the day, the Chiefs are by far the best team in the NFL. Maybe they didn't like look great towards the end, but um, the Browns have dealt with a lot of adversity. Like that win last week, I think they like blew their load. I think they'll show up. I think they'll put up some points, but ultimately, I think this Chiefs team is better.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs win, and like it wouldn't surprise me if there's a late cover by the Chiefs too, or going to be completely Vegas and they win by exactly 10. Now let's move on to the last game of the weekend. I feel like this might be the toughest game to pick. We got Tampa at New Orleans. New Orleans is a 3-point favorite most places. 52 and a half over under. It opened up at 49. It's going up. It's tough to beat a team 3 times. I got Tampa Bay winning this game in a classic type of game. But I could totally see New Orleans winning this too. But I feel like the over-under, I think it's going to go over, and we're going to get some fireworks in the last game of the weekend.
Yeah, I agree. You know, like I think the game goes over, and I would bet Tampa. Like, you know, getting 3 points, I just don't see them losing by more than that. You know, and I agree. Like, if you put a gun to my head, I would say Tampa wins this game. Like Tom Brady just seems to find a way. His team is so talented, whereas the Saints, I feel like have like 2, maybe 3, 4 guys when you include the defense, but not the entire team. Like Tampa Bay's defense is just as good, and they're just loaded with talent up and down. And you know, I think Tom Brady gets done, gets the next round, and potentially does get to the Super Bowl. But I wouldn't be shocked also if he fell apart and he, you know, ran in Father Time, threw some picks, and you know, we see him kind of, you know, end the year on a sour note. But I do think it's high scoring because there's just too many veterans that have too much experience and will get it done. And both these past defenses are very, very poor.
Yeah, so then that would lead us to Kansas City, Baltimore, and Green Bay and Tampa the following weekend. So,
yeah,
which would be, I mean, obviously you would think that that's what the league wants. I mean, Lamar and Mahomes and Rodgers and Brady. I mean, that sells itself.
Forget about
it. Anything else to add, Paulie?
No, just a big shout out to CK. Congrats, and good luck this weekend, nation.
That's right. Good luck. Don't worry. There'll be an article of mine will be out sometime later this morning or early in the morning because the Saturday slate. You know, basically, guys, don't get too crazy. Like I say, what you've got to do is play some of the chalky plays, and then on the value plays, make your pivots from there. So, once again, congrats to Papa Daddy, Big Daddy CK, from the entire nation. So for Paulie D, I'm Patio Joe, and as Big Daddy CK says in the back, hey. It could be happening. Big Daddy CK could be doing some stuff. So if we're still on, just let us know. We could be still on. We're just gonna be talking.
Nah, I bet he's there doing the dirt.
Let's see. Nope. We're still live.
Nice.
We're still live.
Unplug each, it'll just die. All right, I'll see you later.
Later.